So welcome everyone. Today we will study collision. So first of all, before starting the topic collision, we will study the topic of coefficient of restitution. So what is coefficient of restitution? Which is denoted by the letter E. So coefficient of restitution E is equal to the relative velocity after the collision upon the relative velocity before collision. So let's study it with the example. So we have a ball going with velocity u1 and the other ball going with the velocity u2. So after the collision, their velocity becomes v1 and the other ball velocity becomes v2. So the value of coefficient of restitution is equal to v2 minus v1, which is the relative velocity after the collision, upon the relative velocity before collision, u1 minus u2. u1 minus u2 is done because the value u1 is always greater than u2, otherwise both the balls will never met. So giving it positive, we take u1 minus u2. Then we have three types of collision. The three types of collision are elastic collision, inelastic collision and complete collision. So in elastic collision, the velocity of coefficient of restitution is 1. In inelastic collision, the value of E is between 0 and 1. And in complete elastic collision, it is E is equal to 0. So what are the methods to solve questions? So to solve the questions of collision, we use two equations. One is the momentum conservation equation and the second is the Newton law of conservation. So the first equation is momentum conservation. It basically says that if we have two balls m1 and m2 with u1 and u2 velocity, so after the collision they get a bit deformed and m1 and m2 masses both have the same velocity during the collision. It is very important to remember that both have the same velocity, which is known as VC, velocity of collision. Then their velocity becomes v1 and v2 and the masses are m1 and m2. So the momentum conservation says that m1 u1 plus m2 u2, which is the initial total momentum, is equal to m1 vc plus m2 vc, which is the during the collision momentum, and m1 v1 plus m2 v2, which is the final momentum. And the important part is all these momentums are equal. Also, whatever values we are giving in this formula, like u1 u2 vc and v1 v2, should be according to the sign convention we follow, like velocity going towards the right side are always positive and velocity going on the left side of x-axis are always taken negative. So these were the convention to be taken. Then we have Newton law of collision. This is the second equation we have to implement. We need two equations because there are variables which can be taken out. Like if we want to calculate u1 u2 v1 v2, then we need multiple equations. So Newton law of collision has two equations basically. The first equation is the velocity for each and every object with mass m, let's say an initial velocity u. So for each ball, the velocity v will be equal to 1 plus e into VCOM minus u, where e is the coefficient of restitution, v is the velocity of each ball, v center of mass is the center of mass velocity, which is equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2 upon m1 plus m2, and this is applied on each body having velocity u initially and its final velocity is v during the collision. And then we have another equation which is known as the second equation, which is the value of coefficient of restitution, which is equal to v2 minus v1 upon u1 minus u2. It is for the two bodies colliding which have velocity u1 like this one, u1 u2 and v1 v2, and these values are also given with sign. So these two parts we have to remember to solve all the questions. And this is one important point, like in a completely inelastic collision, if we have a completely inelastic collision, the bodies stick together and move with VCOM after collision. It means that whenever we have completely inelastic collision, then the both bodies will stick together and move with v center of mass after collision. It means that, let's say this example, we have two balls m1 and m2 and they go with u1 and u2. So after the collision, like you can see, they move differently with different velocity v1 and v2. But in a completely inelastic collision, they will move together with velocity equal to v center of mass, and we know that v center of mass velocity is m1 v1 plus m2 v2 upon m1 plus m2. And now we have a question from JEE Mains 2023, and we will solve this using our knowledge, what we have learned. So the question says that a particle of mass m with velocity v collides with stationary particle of mass 2m. After collision, they stick together and move together with velocity, and we have to find the velocity. The options are given. So in this question, we can see that we are given the condition that they move together, and we know that whenever two bodies move together in a collision, after the collision, so then the collision is always completely inelastic collision, and both the bodies move with center of mass velocity. So the velocity we have to find is basically equal to center of mass velocity. So the center of mass velocity is m1 v1 plus m2 v2 upon m1 plus m2. So m1 is m and m into v plus 2m into 0, because the 2m ball was stationary, and then mv plus mv upon 3m is equal to v by 3. So the final velocity with which both the balls will move is v by 3. So this is the final answer, and we will learn next topics related to collisions, like different topics of collision we have, like kinetic energy after collision and other topics. We will learn in the upcoming videos. So this is the introductory video of collision, and we will be doing a lot of JEE Main PYQ, and hope you like it. Thanks.